This is the 415ers podcast brought to you by the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. Please download, rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, all that jazz. That's Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. Okay, well, we talked about trading up for a quarterback and just kind of mentioned him offhand. Well, the 49ers actually signed a quarterback this week. They signed a veteran, the 30-year-old and former Cincinnati Bengal, Brandon Allen, who I think has had, 15 starts in his career, Mark. This is just kind of a fourth quarterback that actually Kyle Shanahan did mention a month ago, wanted to sign a fourth quarterback, can never have too much depth. But to me, this is kind of a throwaway. And I really don't want to spend a ton of time talking about what it means because outside of him just so happening to play the position that three other guys that we've talked about a ton this offseason do, it doesn't move the needle a whole lot.
Yeah, 15 total games in his 4 years, 9 of them starts. 6 of those 9 coming with the Cincinnati Bengals over the last 3 years. In his 9 starts, 2-7 quarterback record. I wouldn't read into it all that much. I mean, he played on a bad Denver team. He went 1-2, 2020, 1-4 in 5 starts with Cincinnati. That was after Joe Burrow tore his ACL in his rookie year. And without Joe Burrow, and even in Burrow's rookie year, that team around him was not very good. They got good the following year in 2021 when he made 1 start at the end of the year and did not win that game. Doesn't have a ton of experience. I will say, he helped back up a young budding quarterback in Joe Burrow, and look at him now. Now he's a perennial contender in the AFC, a perennial MVP candidate, a perennial Pro Bowler. Can he do something similar with Trey Lance? Maybe Brandon Allen is the secret sauce to getting your young quarterback going. Who knows?
Oh, Trey Lance. I thought you were going to say Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I
actually brought him in to groom the other heir apparent.
Maybe. I don't know.
You never know. They also signed Willie Snead, or re-signed Willie Snead, I should say. So the Willie Snead era is back for the 49ers.
Let's go. It's big time.
Yeah, no, well, just one last note on Brandon Allen. To me, he's the Josh Johnson of this team now, essentially, is what he is. He's a veteran quarterback, hasn't played a whole lot in the NFL, but has been on a multitude of teams, brings a lot of experience, valuable, probably locker room stability, perhaps some leadership. But similar to Josh Johnson, you hope that he's not on the field in a game that matters.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Niners, so they were not sure if Brock Purdy was going to make the roster last year. You got to help me out. I'm blanking on which quarterback they signed, and then they let go once they realized Brock Purdy was good in the offseason. He then went and became the backup for the Lions.
Wait.
Sudfeld, yeah.
Yeah.
So they had Nate Sudfeld. So they had Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Nate Sudfeld, and they drafted Brock Purdy, 4 quarterbacks. They're not taking 4 with them to the regular season. You're taking 3. You have Trey Lance, you have Brock Purdy, you have Sam Darnold, and now you have Brandon Allen. I don't think this means all that much. My guess is Brandon Allen is cut, and when you got to get down, you got to get your rosters down before the regular season, and then he finds a home somewhere else as a second or third string guy, and the rest is history. So I do not think we will see any Brandon Allen in a 49ers uniform in the regular season. I would be shocked. If we do, that means bad things have happened for the 49ers this offseason. So I would not read into this signing really at all.
Yes, it does. And the last part of the 415ers episode today, I think this was from an interview a week ago, Mark, but Deebo Samuel was on the Cole is Balls YouTube show with Kevin Hart. It's a comedic show. I encourage everyone to check it out. It's actually pretty funny. Basically, Kevin Hart, well-known megastar comedian, sits in a cold tub with athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and he basically just shoots the bleep with them. And Deebo Samuel was on last week and had a quote about, well, Kevin Hart asked him who's the team he hated the most in the NFL. And it was a pretty quick answer, and I think it was pretty accurate. And it wasn't so much surprising, Mark. It is the Los Angeles Rams. Deebo Samuel,
Shocker,
quote, absolutely hates the Los Angeles Rams. So And look, it actually kind of fits. Well, one, he did lose in the postseason to them, but he is undefeated in the regular season against the LA Rams. Had a big game on Monday night earlier this season. Always seems to get up against the Rams. The feeling appears to be mutual. Aaron Donald has spoken out, of course, about how he does not like the 49ers. And the two teams have had a lot of history together recently, more towards the 49ers' favor, but in the postseason, the Rams have had the upper edge. But we're just thinking about, like, who are the most hateable teams in the NFL right now?
Hateable teams currently in the NFL. Oh man, that's
I
tougher. I
honestly,
was
though,
thinking,
I am a bit shocked that it was. I mean, it makes sense that it's the Rams. Deebo Samuel came into the league not so long ago, but it is a little interesting to hear a 49er player not say the Seattle Seahawks when it comes to hating a team in the NFC West.
well, yeah, when we first talking about this as an idea here on the podcast, the Seahawks are the first thing that popped into my head. Like, I know it's an entirely different team now. The only holdover is head coach Pete Carroll, and that's enough to keep my hatred flowing for a little bit longer, I suppose. But I mean, that's still the first team that comes to my head. Um, I have a really fun time hating on the Minnesota Vikings. I know you know that. I
Yeah.
do feel a little bit bad though, because what has that fan base done to deserve that terrible team? I don't know. I
Minnesota,
probably shouldn't
nice.
call them terrible. Um, but I
No,
mean, they've just they
they're okay.
been put through so much stuff over the last handful of years. Maybe I should lay off a little bit, but for me, it's still Seattle. I know it's an entirely different team, and I can appreciate the way that they're building their roster. Evan, I think they had a fantastic draft, by the way. Maybe we could get into that a little bit as we get closer to the season, taking a look at all the teams in the NFC West and their off seasons. But the Seahawks did a really good job, I think, for the second straight year in the draft. I think they're going to be really fun this year once again. But for me, I think they're still my most hated team, and it's not all that close for me.
I understand. I have nothing against the Minnesota Vikings. I lived in St. Paul for a little bit. I love their
There you go.
fans. I love the area. And even though I don't really get the Kirk Cousins thing, I think that's also where we do not differ. Um, I don't know, like hateable teams. I think it has to do a whole lot with either their branding, a coach, maybe an owner. So I'm very happy to see that the Washington Commanders will not be owned, hopefully
True.
soon, by Daniel Snyder. I think that's an easy organization to jump on the bandwagon and hate. Um, kind of looking around, like I think for a while I disliked the New Orleans Saints. Actually, I take that back. Last year I disliked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did not like that team. I did not like the 45-year-old Tom Brady and how anyone who retires and unretires does not have my respect. Also, I cannot trust them, which is one reason that I felt like this offseason he would unretire again and potentially come play for the 49ers. Um, and then the kind of the last team that I cannot stand is due to their quarterback, but it's the Cleveland Browns. And for very obvious
Yeah,
reasons,
fair
Deshaun
enough.
Watson pisses me the hell off. So if we're ranking teams based on dislikable figures, Washington and Cleveland, and then just kind of a personal random hatred for what the Buccaneers were last year.
Fair enough. I can just imagine Niner fans listening. If you are a little bit older than Evan and myself, maybe you're in your upper 30s or into your 40s, you're screaming like, "What about the Cowboys?" That would be another one I'd throw in there just because of the history with the 49ers. For me personally, I don't. My personal experiences don't really have a lot of those learned experiences to hate the Cowboys, because a lot of that was before my time, or at least before I can really remember it. So that's a little more difficult for me, but I totally understand it. Jerry Jones, as a person, can get under my skin and get on my nerves a little bit as well. So you got to give an honorable mention or a shout out to the Cowboys, specifically to Jerry Jones as well. I think they're on the list. But because of the recent history, Seahawks, I love poking fun at the Vikings. I'm with you about the Buccaneers this past year, although that's more, I think, personally for me, just because their brand of football this last year was so disgusting to watch. Oh my God, it was a nightmare trying to watch them and watch 45-year-old Tom Brady throw the ball 55 times a game. Just wondering if we're going to get his arm to fall off, which would be the most exciting thing that happened to that team all year. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. That was a tough year.
By the transitive property, this year, my most hated team will probably be the New York Jets because of their soon-to-be skeleton of a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I know he's been out of New York Rangers playoff games. He was at Madison Square Garden to see the Knicks play the Heat. He cut his hair. He trimmed his beard. He's all NYC now, even though they play in New Jersey. And I can't stand it. And I will not be touching him in any sort of fantasy draft. I do not like the New York Jets now. They are on my bleep list. Although every team is really up for that at this point in the season, Mark. Everyone has a chance to be on my most hated list, of course, outside the 49ers.
Yeah, it's a clean slate. There's a lot that could happen throughout this entire rest
We're
of this
having
offseason and the
tryouts.
regular season. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. There will not be a shortage of teams to hate by the time the regular season rolls around. We will be picking. We'll have the pick of the litter. It'll be
No,
nice.
yeah, maybe that's something we can keep going. Obviously, we'll have our power rankings for teams that are good, and who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to win the Super Bowl. But we can have our hateable power rankings. And
I'm
right
in.
now, New York Jets an early front runner.
I'm in. It'll be fun.
Sounds good. That'll wrap this up for this episode of the 415ers podcast. Again, as always, please download, rate, subscribe. Check out the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network. A lot of other great content there. Check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe to the 95.7 The Game channel. And we're coming at you twice a week here in the offseason. We'll be back next Tuesday, next Thursday. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. That is Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. We'll talk to you next time.